1095 Avenue of the Americas at Bryant Park. It starts and begins at Bryant Park, the entire show. As Carol mentioned, it really is at a very important center now. That is the existing, or the building that we inherited, the Verizon building, and Bryant Park, and that is a slide before the advent of the Bank of America building by Rick. Next slide. Rarely in New York do you have a front yard of that quality. There are very few. We had the fortunate opportunity to work on another one, the General Motors building, with a Grand Army Plaza in front of it, but this is spectacular. And the history of this park, in the current history of this park, followed the current history of what I think was the Verizon building, in that in the 70s, and certainly in the 80s, this was not the place to be, and it is now. And the pressure on this great space is very evident. Next slide. As Rick discussed and as Rick discovered, the Verizon buildings are unique architecture. The building was completed in '74. Con and Jacobs, Frank talked about the size of the building. We wanted to know why the building came into being, and it very simply, New York Telephone had underestimated the capacity, and they needed to bring this building online very quickly. But it was not only the switch that was required, it also became the headquarters for New York Telephone, then Bell Atlantic, and then Verizon. Next slide. The building had a simple form, but a unique interior arrangement. It, of course, the base of the building was intended for retail. The switch, the main switch that stayed in place, is floors 6 through 12. It was a sky lobby building. Not a lot of people knew that going in. Of course, the due diligence certainly knew, but you take shuttle cars up to the 20th floor for the sky lobby, and then it becomes a center core building for the high rise, and the low rise is served by a low rise elevator, which was woefully inadequate for the current office tenancy. Next slide. The site plan of the building, that's the main building, and the other very unique part of the building was that it had a public bonus plaza on the west side. So it's a freestanding building on the block with the annex to the west of it. So to deal with the unique stacking that occurred and the evolution of deciding to take the skin off the building and put a new one on, we had to deal with the aspects that we talked about, as Rick has dealt with on Pearl Street. The building has at least 6 different floor-to-floor heights. The base of the building runs anywhere in the 17s to 18'6" floor-to-floor, and the upper part generally is in the 12'6" range. So we wanted to create a new cloth on the building that took the diversity of these elements and brought it into a single one, and really expressed what we think is fundamentally a very good shape, form of the building, one that is not achievable today in the current zoning regulations. Next slide. The building, as it was reconfigured on the base, it still has the significant entry off of the Avenue of the Americas facing Bryant Park. As I said, it's a shuttle core building, so these are the 4 quote-unquote cattle cars that take you up to the sky lobby. This is the original low-rise elevator core, and as Frank mentioned, we had to add the 4 cars to supplement the service, and this is all with destination dispatch technology that certainly increased the efficiency and reliability of the elevators. Then on the west, the new public plaza. Next slide. The floors themselves on the low-rise floor, what we found were These are the cable trays, these large masses here. They're the cable trays that bring the technology up to the 6th and 12th floor, untouchable. And these elements in between were simply architecture. And the new skin allowed us to open the floor plate up quite a bit, on this being the low rise. The next slide. That was the condition that we were faced on the low rise condition, and here's the value of the building, and you can barely see it, so certainly underestimated. And Frank mentioned the induction unit, quite a fortress there on the perimeter. Next slide. To the high rise, simply following the same thing, we go to a standard central core area with very good lease span. The existing, once again, had large engaged columns on the facade, and strangely enough, the bustle part of it was the precasted marble and construction that prevented any views on the west, which are certainly some of the best in the building. Next, please. And that is the condition on the high rise, the induction units, low ceilings, but undeniably very significant views, given that it's a freestanding building in Midtown. Next. So we had two primary conditions amongst a myriad of others, dealing with the cable tray structure, which was a series of trusses, very large trusses, the low rise, the 17.3 up to the 18'6" size, and then on the high rise we had a 12'6" floor-to-floor height. What we wanted to do, and I think Rick is on the same path, and a very good one, is that it's quality of light and air on buildings make the best buildings, and we wanted to bring in as much light into this building, given, especially on the low rise, the very deep lease span that's there. Next slide. The deconstruction of the building was certainly one of the most challenging parts of the project, thanks to Hoffman Architecture and Tishman Construction. We think it went flawlessly, and Frank will testify to it was a great expense, and Rick mentioned that as well. It was the same construction, precasted stone, but taking all of that stone off of the building before we could get anywhere going with the new wall was a significant effort, especially with maintaining the occupancy that was there. I think all of us engaged in the project started with the idea we didn't want to be responsible for taking down the telephone service in New York City. And a knock on wood to date, I don't think we've actually caused that. But that is the switch in the building, those 6 floors, and those are those unique trusses on the perimeter. It goes to a standard spandrel wide flange on the upper half of the building, but all of that was taken down. A weather wall was put in to protect the switch, and also inside on the core. So I think Hoffman did a great job of guiding us toward keeping the building intact during a very vulnerable period. Next. And this is it during construction, a very unique way to build a building, and to start mid-span and go up and then go down. I think a lot of people in the public sector were wondering what the heck was going on during this period. Were we done? And you can see the weather wall for the switch there, which also created a challenge and an opportunity in the use of glass, shadow box, and spandrel and fritting to hide these very large cable risers inside the building. Next. And this is a slide of the building as it is now. We're not 100% done. We're working on the base of the building and finishing up a couple other areas, but you can see the change in Bryant Park that has occurred over the last few years. Next, please. And there's a view from the south looking north on the building. And the glass was a very important consideration on the building. some of the primary aspects of the glass we used. It is one of the most efficient glasses possible. It allows in the most amount of light and takes out the most amount of radiation of any glass, being originally the LOF blue-green, but the blue-green glass. So it was a very efficient glass. One of the major focuses, given that we were going to go up that high without a break in the architecture, was the flatness of the glass. And our office, working with Israel Berger's office, focused very much on the quality of that glass, and by using a 3/8 inch outer light of glass going upwards of 13 or 14 feet unbroken, we were able to achieve what we're very proud of, is a very flat piece of glass that reflects the sky beautifully and the surrounding neighborhood. Next, please. This is a view of the bustle. You could see the original precasted stone wall on the east and west side, and then a current view looking through to provide what we think are some very important views of the city for the tenancy, and also views into the building. Some of the other aspects of the building that we're in the midst of, the completion of the storefront, the base of the building is very important. We're at 42nd Street and 6th Avenue, create a very exciting retail presence on the building. This is the building entry on 6th Avenue, but it's flanked by two very important retail spaces, potentially 2-story high, using mineral-free glass to contrast with the tower itself. And equally, next slide, the west view of the building, with the development of a new plaza, a major entry into the building, the integration of the MTA at that point, and again, once again, the retail aspect on 42nd Street being incredibly important. The lobby of the building was completed, the use of Venetino whitestone and Cardosa flooring, and exploiting the 2-story high space that was there, and reintroducing the idea of the mineral-free glass on the building, a view looking out from that. Next slide. And as Frank said, and Rick in his presentation alluded to, these projects are the effort of a tremendous team. I like our NASCAR representation of the building, but it involved every one of these people playing a vital part of it, and most importantly was Gensler, our architectural partners on the job, working together from day one to bring this important project onto the ground in front of Bryant Park. Next slide. And we thank you for the opportunity to show us, and Doug, who was from the beginning on the project, I think would like to, Doug Mass from Cosentini would like to speak about some of the issues that were brought to bear in terms of bringing this building into the 21st century completely on the internal side. Thank you.